Hey everybody, we're back for a show of the second half of 2022. Is that a thing? Second half of 2022?
Oh, by the way, happy Independence Day. I just stated.
We're recording this on Monday, July 4th. We're a day late. We were supposed to record yesterday, but Dr. Mike ruined everything by oversleeping and causing us to, reschedule everything for today. So
John's projecting, by the way.
Well done, Dr. Mike. Thanks for not wasting everybody's time. Recording it was my fault. Sorry about that. But happy Independence Day, kind of. Independence Day, Josh. When you hear of American Independence Day, do you take this personally, or is it not a thing, or what?
It's just not a thing.
No.
I mean, we have, of course, June 16th, which is the British equivalent of Independence Day.
June 16th?
Yeah, that's when the EU referendum.
That kind of independence. Yeah. Well, if you have a certain political stripe, let's say you celebrate it, and
the U.S. it's the same story now.
A lot of people don't celebrate it.
True. I mean, probably a lot of people are still crying about it.
But there's, we talk about the British Empire. There must be an Independence Day every week or two somewhere around the globe.
Probably, yeah.
From the UK. But anyway, where was I? Oh, yeah, Independence Day. But that's today, and by the time we post this, Independence Day will be gone. So what is this? Let me do the math here. 1776, so it's 224... 246 years, if my math is correct.
So there's going to be a big one coming up in
that'll be 250 years, exactly.
I can ask Mayakovsky if he remembers the first ones, yeah.
He was around. Okay, let's segue awkwardly into something else. Let's get the Beavis and Butthead stories out of the way first, because I really want to talk about them. Let's get the
to stupidity and beyond
the stories involving nudity and sex and just the fun stories. We have said many times here on our show that the addition of the word naked in the headline makes it more interesting and funnier. Right, didn't we? We had about a year ago, we had a story about this guy who was on the tram naked, and you hear about a guy on a tram making trouble, he's drunk or whatever, nobody cares. But if you say a naked guy on a tram, well, suddenly, it's hilarious and everybody wants to listen to it. Anyway, this was last week. We took last week off, so this happened about a week ago. Some ridiculous hour in the early morning.
3 a.m., yeah.
3 a.m., somebody's driving the car through the Renwick, which is itself a problem, right?
And we're not talking about driving on the roadway around it. But
no, just driving randomly through it, like this angle, that angle.
Go nuts. And
this guy apparently forgot that not only is there a police station in the Renwick.
I don't think there is anymore.
Isn't there?
No.
What?
The little one, it's gone.
On the west side by the...
just down from McDonald's. No, it's not there anymore.
Since when?
I think about a year or two or 5.
Shows you what I know. Jesus. How do they not have a police station in the Renwick?
They have a permanent police presence there anyway with actual vehicles.
Okay, well...
And of course there's cameras all over it.
Well, that's the thing, exactly. There's cameras everywhere, and the cameras are probably 10 times more effective than the police station ever was. Mm-hmm. Because I had reason to drop by that police station a couple of times, and they were, let's say, less than enthusiastic about helping anybody who walked through the doorway. But okay, well, anyway, the Renwick, formerly the home of a police station, currently the home of about 10,000 cameras, monitoring cameras. And this guy is driving through the Renwick, 3 o'clock in the morning. He gets noticed, as cars tend to get noticed when they're the only one in the Renwick at that hour. Somebody from the, Mike, was it the Strażmieska or the police?
It was first the Strażmieska that tried to wave him down.
Tried to wave him down. This guy basically... Well, to say that he ran the Strażmieska officer over is a bit of an exaggeration, but he didn't make much of an effort to avoid him. Let's say that.
He didn't want to kill him, but he didn't care if he stayed alive.
He didn't make an effort to avoid him, but he didn't exactly aim for him either. But anyway.
Strażmieska got out of the way, but there was physical contact.
So the Strażmieska and the police are put on full alert. There's this guy not only driving in the Renwick, but, potentially, running into and harming one of theirs. So the full alert goes out. The guy in the car tries to make a run for it, I think going down Krzyża or Mikołajska trying to get out of the east side of town. The police cut him off. Turns out the guy is in his car naked. He gets out of the car, decides to make a run for it, which is always a good idea, right? Because it works so often.
Because the car is slower than actually running.
Oh, and the car has no connection to your name and your address at all. They're never going to find you based on the car you leave behind. No.
Though I can understand the police being a little more hesitant to actually chase him when they see he's naked, yeah.
Well, that's true.
At least you don't have to worry about
Was he drunk or high or something?
He
or
wasn't.
just
That's the thing. They
stupid?
apparently, on the spot, once they did apprehend him somewhere at the beginning of Florenska Street, blood alcohol 0, but they did take samples to test later for any kind of narcotics, which, results haven't been publicized yet.
Now, can you? We've all experienced emotional extremes with and without alcohol. Can you imagine? I mean, without alcohol, without drugs, what would drive you to drive naked and run for it from the cops? I mean, how?
The heat. It must have been the heat. It was air conditioning in his car. Then the air conditioning went out, and he was just going crazy, rolling down the windows.
Wasn't there also a word about the penalties he's facing as well?
There's jail time mainly for the
assault with the vehicle. It's pretty serious. I mean,
yeah, of course it is. I mean, that could be construed as attempted murder.
Yeah, exactly. Even if you want to look at it, I've seen the tape. It's on the internet. Like I said, I don't think he intentionally aimed at him, but at the same time, he didn't make an effort to get out of the way.
Yeah.
And that legally, that's a problem.
Reckless driving and endangerment, definitely.
So, naked guy in the Rennick dominates or leads off our news anyway. That's our first naked story. Our second naked story comes from last week. This involves two people, a male and a female, as far as I know.
Yes, fortunately.
Okay.
Yes.
Are you not making a very bold assumption there, John?
They were getting to know each other very, very well on
Intimately,
a public bench somewhere in Nowa Huta. And let's just say they were really, really into each other.
This stuff,
or one was into the other one at a minimum.
Or in and then out.
And
then in
yes,
and out, yeah.
And some of the neighbors kind of less than enthusiastic about having this go on outside their window.
This was pre-sunsets.
This is daylight, by the way. Yes, thanks for reminding me. This is broad daylight. The cops show up. I don't think anyone tried to run for it this time.
Well, they had their pants around their ankles, so it's kind of hard. No, but apparently,
leave it alone, Josh. Leave it alone. I could see he was thinking about it. Go ahead.
One of the neighbors, actually caught this on camera or on their phone and presented it to the authorities when they arrived, because once the authorities arrived, they were already partially dressed. So they said the woman was, dressed above her waist. So, she still hadn't pulled her panties up, I'm guessing, at this moment. Though the way it was expressed was that, maybe they were getting frisky as well. We probably started with some... a little bit of fellatio there at the beginning, and that's what was actually caught on camera, or this guy. But yes, it's a 1,500 zlotys fine for public indecency.
1,500. It might not be a bad price to pay for to join the. What would we call this? It's not the Mile High Club. It's the
just under a meter high club,
the Park Bench Club, which sounds much less elite and exclusive.
Yeah. I mean, you could see this happening like in Plunt at 2 a.m. on a weekend or something along those lines.
Okay, let's be honest. We all, how should I say? We can all guess that this kind of thing goes on park benches at, as you say, 2 or 3 a.m. all the time. Some people are smart and don't get caught. Others don't care and are happy to get caught, I guess. But let's not pretend this doesn't happen all the time, because I think it does.
Yeah, but you try to not do it at daylight on a bench in a park in front of a residential area. It's not quite exposed actually.
But if you want to, 1,500 doesn't sound like a bad. I mean, I'm just saying. If you want to add it to the list of
actually,
check this box.
You remember we covered this thing several months back about these 3 guys who mooned the cameras in on the Rennick. I mean, what do they get fined?
I think they were looking at 500 apiece.
Oh, those 3 it comes to the same actually.
500 a cheek.
But public indecency is a very kind of a broad catch-all thing. I mean, you could. Pulling your pants down and having sex is treated the same?
I don't think so. I think that it also depends on the time and area. And I don't know, I've never been caught. I mean, I've never to warrant knowing what the fines are. So
yeah, sure.
Being caught.
Well, anyway, that's our lead off 2 stories here. Naked guy driving the car and passionate couple, let's call them. Let's move on to one of our favorite topics over the how many episodes have we done? 400 or 300? I keep forgetting.
400.
400. Over our 400 plus episodes, probably the number one most frequently discussed topic is public transport, various aspects of the subject of public transport. So we're going to live up to our own traditions today with a couple of stories on this. We've all discussed this before. We would never do them. Dr. Mike, Josh, you've never ridden a tram or a bus here in Krakow without buying a ticket. You would never do that.
Absolutely
You
never.
would not suggest it, encourage it, condone it. It's theft, and we would never do that, right?
Right.
It's a fine service, and I feel it is my responsibility to support the city for providing it for it.
Sometimes buy 2 tickets, even though you don't need to buy. Exactly. We love it so much. We would never suggest that anybody ride public transport without a ticket. However, believe it or not, some people do this. I know.
I've heard this. Yeah.
And part of the strategy, let's say, for people who choose to do this is pretending to buy a ticket. And starting a couple of years ago, when the option to buy a ticket with your phone using any number of applications became an option, some people have kind of cheated in the way, they wait for the doors to close, and if they hear the announcement that you're supposed to prepare your ticket for inspection, they immediately get on their phone and pretend like they're buying a ticket. And if the ticket controller comes to them before the transaction is complete, they can say, well, it's not my fault. I had every intention of buying a ticket, but connection was slow and the application is not loading.
Or
so
you will just pay for it at that moment anyway.
Exactly. It's not my fault. Well, in a rare example of how not everyone who works for the city government is an idiot, they have caught on to this, and they have adopted new policies to combat this strategy, let's call it. So from now on, I think this policy already came into place
On July 1st, I think.
At the beginning of July. When the ticket inspectors board a tram or a bus, they can somehow disable purchases through the application for that particular bus or tram. I don't know how it works technically, but they can. So before the announcement is made that they are on the bus and about to check your ticket, they take some kind of, I don't know how they do it, but again, as I said, they can make it impossible to buy a ticket for that bus or tram, and after they announce that they're looking at tickets, you are stuck, basically. Fair and part of the battle with cheaters, or a little bit underhanded and extreme.
Oh, and also when you buy your ticket via the app, you have to enter the unique number for the bus or tram that you're on. That's right. So, I mean, this is an interesting one, of course, because if you buy one of those, like 20 minutes or a 40 minute or whatever, and you might change the vehicle you're on, but whenever you bought it and wherever you bought it should be recorded in the app.
True.
Yeah.
So, fair play to the ticket inspectors, or low blow?
I think it's a fair play, but I have recently also read that Krakow will be introducing a system similar to what you have in the UK and Australia and some cities in the US, where it's a tap-on system where just have an NFC reader when you get on the tram or the bus and use an app or a phone or a credit card. And once they introduce that system, then this system will no longer apply either, because you'll be paying for your ticket the moment you get on. There will be no on the tram going through an app, buying a ticket, punching a ticket. But for the time being, I think this is more than fair enough. I can definitely see some people trying to cheat the system. I was reading the comments underneath some of these articles, and some people were saying the controllers never actually, very rarely scan the tickets, especially the ones on their phone screens. If you have a paper one, yes, but if you have a phone screen, not so often. So you can just Photoshop something that looks like a ticket from a distance, and a lot of the time when it's really crowded, the control, and if it doesn't scan through, something's wrong. It's I don't know. Yeah.
Well, they do. It does actually have it does actually have in small writing the time at which if it's a 20-minute ticket that you bought, the time at which it expires. So I mean, they can if they know where on the screen that's located, you can look at that bit first.
No, somebody on those comments also said, let's just make an app that when you press it, it randomly generates a screenshot with the proper time and information that you might want, on the assumption that they won't actually scan the QR code or the barcode that's on the screen, just look at the information.
And that's presumably why you also have to put in the number of the tram or bus as well. So, yeah.
I would like to send out an invitation to all the big famous Polish YouTubers, of which there are surprisingly many, because I haven't seen this. This is what I want somebody to do, not me, of course, because I'm too lazy. But what's that, the huge one, Mike? Ekipa?
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
This is my invitation to them. I want you to get a team of 10 people, and go to some big city, could be Krakow, could be Warsaw, doesn't matter. 10 people, have them ride a tram all day, to sit down with a book, ride the tram first thing in the morning to the last run at night, and see how many of those people get checked and how often. I'm just curious to know, what are your chances of getting caught, I guess, in a random ticket check in a big city tram? I'd be very curious to know this.
I don't use trams very often, but I think, it's probably around 1 in 3 times I use a tram that there's a ticket.
High?
Yeah. 1 in 3? Time of day and where you live.
Yeah,
you're here in the center of town, Josh, so I think that has a big impact on it.
There's more often. Plus, I actually have one colleague at work, and she lives right by where the controllers have their base of operations, where they start their day. And when they get on the tram there, they check right away.
Sure.
So she says it's almost daily. Haven't been riding the tram often until a few months ago when my employer changed where I work. So now I ride the tram every day. And in the last 4 months, I want to say it's been maybe once a week along those lines. So 10 trips a day. So 2 trips there and back. So it's 10 a week. So, and 1 out of 10 is probably I get checked.
Surely there must be, probably more so on buses than trams, there must be some sections, way out there, in the middle of nowhere, where you get to the end of the line and you have a 45-minute wait before you can turn around and come back on another bus, where the ticket controllers say, I don't want to forget it.
I know. A few years ago, I was
must be safe out there.
I arrived back in Krakow at the airport at about 11 at night, and it was the winter. The train service was particularly dismal at that time. There wasn't a train basically until 5 in the morning, so it was get a local bus. So I got on a local bus at about 11:30, and around about sort of Bronivica mark, more or less, inspectors got on and were checking everyone's tickets, and it was all exhausted people who just kind of.
I think the airport must be easy pickings for the airport, and Karmelitska because of the students and maybe the tourists. They know where the good fishing is, I suppose.
Where the naked people are.
There are quotas, so they're enticed to find those easy pickings. They're supposed to catch a certain amount every month, and earn a certain amount that way as well. They get a commission, I believe. I'm not sure about that, but I believe so.
They do. Yeah.
So they're not enticed to randomly search, but to go to places where they think it's more likely that it will happen.
I told the story before. I'll tell it again. The last time I got caught without a ticket was on Lubitsch, fairly late at night, headed, west towards Bagatella. And we were at the lot. It used to be called the Lot Stop. They changed names a couple of years ago.
Yeah, now it's Stary Klepash, isn't it?
Okay. Everybody's confused about that.
It used to be called Lot because that's where the lot office was.
Bastova Lot, wasn't it?
If they just kept with Bastova, that would make more sense.
So I'm in the back of the back car, the back of the second car, leaning against the window. The two guys get on. One of them is drinking a beer, finishing a beer. He gets on, the doors close. He sets down the beer and starts checking tickets. He comes up to me. I have no ticket. He says, "Okay, I need your ID." I said, "Yeah, I don't think so." I saw your beer. As you got on the tram. He's like, "I didn't have a beer." I said, "It's right there on the floor. It's you drinking that beer." And he eyeballs me for a second. And he just keeps going. He gave up. So the beer was my savior that time. But that was the last time I got caught. Same
badass,
subject.
John.
I know, I'm tough. I'm like Clint Eastwood riding the trams. I'm just too cool.
Lucky punk.
Forgot how many tickets I bought. Was it 5
I kind of got
6?
in all this confusion. I lost count.
Same topic, but a little bit different. Here's a weird angle we've never covered before, Dr. Mike. We're still talking about public transport. The drivers of buses and trams, didn't know this, they are subject to different kinds of fines for breaking different rules that apply to their position. We'll talk about what kind of rules in just a moment.
Like wearing clothes.
They're like what?
Wearing clothes.
For example, yes. Oh, the naked is the theme for today.
It is.
Well, actually, wearing clothes is one of the rules.
This is the nudes.
Yes. But anyway, we learned this week that there was a fairly significant reform of these rules, how much they have to pay, and a cap on how much they can be fined in a particular month. So tell us what's going on here while I have a drink of my beer.
Well, the funny thing is the tram and bus drivers were actually threatening to strike last week, and it didn't really go through because in the meantime, they had an increase in wages and they also had these fines reduced. potential fines, and there's, like you said, a cap put on for 500 zlotys of a month of maximum fines.
What are some of the things that they could be fined for?
Some of these things make sense. It's like, well, if your uniform is stained or disheveled, it's like 100 zlotys.
Or absent.
Backwards.
It's like, oh, you didn't button your tie properly, or you're naked. It's the same kind of fine if you're going to go all the way. Another thing is not being punctual, which also means leaving stops more than a minute early is 200 zlotys. So if they're at the stop,
I didn't know this,
and they don't wait to leave at the proper time. So I remember this being an issue where I'm walking up to my tram or bus stop. It's still 2 minutes supposed to leave. There's the bus, and it drives away.
No, we're talking like the beginning of the line, the beginning of the
any stop.
anywhere.
It's supposed to leave each stop.
Now, we all know if they're late, it's not their fault. Traffic, it happens. Yes. But if they happen, by some miracle, if they get to a stop early, they are supposed to sit there and wait until the appointed time before they move on.
People who schedule their routine.
Well, I think that, yes.
And to get back on schedule for the whole path.
Yeah, and I think that's very, very reasonable.
Another thing is if they are involved in any type of fender bender or collision, that's also 200 zlotys. Of course, this might sound cheap, but
200 does not sound like a lot for getting into an accident as the driver of a friggin' tram.
They're still responsible for any other damage that insurance doesn't cover, et cetera, et cetera. But this is on top of everything else. If they cause the collision, it's an extra 200 zlotys on their off the pay every month. So yeah, these are some.
Okay, so the reform was like they made these fines lower, and as you said, they put a cap on it, and this is part of the
kind of a deal with
negotiation process.
Another issue that was happening right now was that apparently there is a lack of drivers for both buses and trams. And I've had people say this at work where just trams aren't showing up. It turns out they're not showing up because they don't have enough personnel. So the MPK is actually persuading drivers to do 1 or 2 extra shifts, work a few hours longer just to fill in those gaps, because they're at the point right now that if one person calls in sick, they don't have anybody else to make up for that person. It's basically just one bus isn't going out that day.
Josh, do you think, am I wrong in thinking that being a bus driver is probably significantly more stressful than being a tram driver because of the traffic conditions you have to deal with?
I would have thought so, yeah. So?
That's my gut feeling. What do you think, Mike?
It's true. I have a friend of mine who is a tram driver. Though he says one of his biggest pet peeves is if he's starting, on the morning shift where the tram leaves at like 5 a.m, he has almost no way to get to work because that's before when all the other buses and trams.
There are no trams.
Yeah.
He gets a schedule or a roster telling him like he doesn't drive always the same tram; it's different ones. So he has to be on the other side of town at 4:30 in the morning when there's no way to get there, basically.
Yeah, I think driving a bus would be more stressful because, again, other drivers. But however, at the same time, driving a tram could also be stressful because at all times you have to assume that everyone around you is a complete idiot, ready to jump in front of you at any moment. I mean, there's so many accidents, both cars and pedestrians somehow come into contact with trams. People don't observe the right of way. People don't observe, traffic lights, things like this. Stuff happens. So I think it's stressful all around. I mean, you just have to have your head on a swivel, but you're always looking forward, I suppose, as a tram driver, but you don't look over your shoulder. But so many things can go wrong. The traffic conditions, especially in the center of town, with pedestrians and cars and complicated traffic light sequences, it can be tough.
Couple of days. So the middle of last week, I think I saw on Starowiczna there was a tram stationary. This was like just south of the junction with Dietler, stationary with its hazard lights on, and like lots of cars all like queued up behind it. And I was of course on my bicycle, so I wasn't impeded in any way. As I got past, there was a Schlussbetechnik or Pogotov or whatever they call it, workmen, and the track was like a rainbow popping out of the concrete.
Oh, yeah. It's that time of year,
and
it's that time of year where the budget army surplus tracks they use around here.
Come on, we've discussed this before. It's physics, John. It's just a feature of metal that it expands in heat.
It happens. Why is it happening here so much? I mean, I don't.
Because the range of temperatures is.
We live here.
Huge.
In other cities, it probably happens as well. It's just we don't.
Doesn't make the headlines.
Yeah, the San Francisco trams don't make headlines in Krakow in that sense. Yeah, it's.
Cable cars.
Same difference.
One more thing that came into effect on July 1st. July 1st is kind of like January 1st in Poland. It's when a lot of laws come into effect. This one has a noticeable difference and actually might be a net positive. Very significant reform of regulations surrounding billboards and advertising and signs generally. And a lot of signs were pulled down taken down, I don't know, by the owners, by the city, by whoever, on the first. And there are pictures all over the internet of like the before and after. And it's a pretty impressive difference. Yeah. I mean, mostly difference for the better. However, there was one place, Dr. Mike, around Galeria Krakowska, where taking down the signs kind of revealed an even uglier side of the city.
Yes, on Pavia Street, that's the main street by Galeria, where the trams go down. Across from the mall, from the shopping center, whatever you want to call it, there were huge signs on fences, basically just advertising parking, I don't know, Viagra-type medication, whatever they advertise in those things, huge numbers, gaudy kind of... half the length of the block. They took them down. It turned out right behind that was kind of like a little bit of a park or trees, which a bunch of homeless people had used as an encampment for years, which explains a lot, because when you walk around the train station there were always a bunch of homeless people, begging for money, just being a nuisance, getting in the way. Also, if you ever went into the Mediamarkt in the Galeria Krakowska, when there was any type of major sporting event, there was always a bunch of homeless people watching there. It was horrible in the TV section. You walk by, you want to check out a TV. And
I never noticed that, but okay.
Yes, I noticed that a few times where you're just like, oh, this big screen TV looks fantastic. Oh my God. They just use it as a public
So now they're stuck. They've lost their shade and their shelter, I suppose.
Yeah, but they've been exposed now. So
they've been made homeless.
That's unfortunate, but
homeless.
In the examples that I've seen, especially if you could remember what it looks like at the crossing of where Listopada becomes whatever it is on the other side of Opolska, at the beginning of Dobrego Prosterza, that area. I mean, it's like night and day, and I'm sure some areas on Limanowskiego and Kalwaryska are the same. So, as I said, it's probably a net positive, but part of me also thinks it's just a matter of time before the signs start to go back up.
Well, they've removed the signs from the center of town years ago, and it was a positive. And what these rules mean right now is that you can no longer have general advertisement on your building. You can only have advertising that correlates with businesses in that building or that area. It can only be, I believe, 50% of the facade of the building, and the advertising on the signage has to be approved by the city. So the style, the font, whatever is being used, so that even McDonald's doesn't have the big,
some micromanagement, but
doesn't have the big golden arches, but just has like a brass sign. And
so does this affect? I think we're all familiar with the example of the side of a building or a block, for example. Huge side, it's windowless. The end of a big block. For years, that space has been rented to advertising agencies that put banners. They're usually for some mobile communications company, maybe a car company, something like that.
Something with Lewandowski.
Yeah, definitely. So are those gone now or what?
In the center and most of the parts of town, yes, they are. I'm curious, Forum, where exactly it fits on this, because that's basically been one big billboard for years.
Well, yeah, now. But no, it's definitely been announced there's no more adverts on Forum.
Okay, so we're going to see.
And there aren't any at the moment.
Yeah. So right now, the only scenarios where you can have full coverage of a building is if that building is being renovated, and the coverage basically has to look like what the building will look like in the future. It could have then just information of the developer or the company that's doing the construction.
Going back to Forum, Josh, I think for a good minimum 15 years, Forum has been de facto a billboard. That's what it's been for. And now that that's no longer an option, I wonder if this is going to add maybe some to the momentum to finally resolve the problem of what to do with that building. Because, the billboard, kind of as ugly as the advertising can be, is better looking than the building, really. Now the building is just going to sit there as a reminder of
dynamite, I think, is the answer.
Wrecking ball. That's horrible.
I can acknowledge that it represents that era, even though it's 20 years later.
Yeah, but isn't it it's unusable because of the cracks in the foundation? That's why the hotel had to move out in the first place.
It can't be renovated either, because to be a modern hotel, you have to fulfill certain standards, which, because of the construction of that building being built by reinforced concrete, you can't widen things, you can't alter things. It's the way it is, and it doesn't meet any type of standards at this time.
What an eyesore that place is.
Yes.
Perfect place on the map in some ways. Also awkward place at the same time in terms of access.
It had some fantastic advertisements back in the day. I mean, the hilarious one, or the awkward one, was during the plane crash catastrophe in 2010, where Lech Kaczynski died, the president of Poland at the time. Lech Beers actually had their advertisement for Zimny Lech, have a cold Lech.
Unfortunate.
And that was like the huge one. And, people thought, okay, that's kind of tasteless. Let's take that down. The next ad that came up, I don't remember which drink this was. It might have been Powerade. It could have been Monster, whatever. It was basically the ad was padłeś, powstań, wypij, and drink our beverage. So it's like, have you fallen or collapsed?
But they couldn't get away from the unfortunate connections to plane crashes, could they?
Rise again.
Well, we'll see what happens to the Hotel Forum now that it has no purpose.
It's even they're going to turn it into more of a hipster area. Though I still say the best thing they could do is turn every hotel room there into like a micro pub with like just 1 or 2 drinks and a theme. So you walk on the floor and every.
But I'm not sure the building is usable in the sense that. If they couldn't use it as a hotel because it wasn't safe, how could they use it as anything else?
I suspect it's just up to health and safety code, actually, things like emergency exits and all the rest of it.
And I wonder if...
but for a venue, because right now the downstairs, the reception areas, you have a bunch of restaurants, bars, clubs. So I'm pretty sure they could definitely renovate one of the floors to serve something else.
Well, if you're on the ground floor, then exits are less of a problem. I mean, it is. I mean, I know that people don't seem to pay much regard to sort of health and safety in the running of commercial establishments.
What's that giant French hotel chain company that owned it, or maybe still owns it?
Well, it was Orbis before that.
And they sold it to the same people who run the Mercure.
That's Softel? No, it's not it.
Well, whatever it is. Anyway, they were the owners as long as it was a hotel, and I thought that they still had some kind of ownership claim to it. And the city's involved, so it's a legal mess. It is a physical mess,
and it's a protected site right now, so they can't alter it.
It's awful. Well, anyway, speaking of messes, one more mess before we melt here. It's about 300 degrees here at KrakCast headquarters.
Calvin.
Josh, I told you to get the air conditioning sorted out, but next time. An update on what I hope is something that's not going to become a trend. Something I hope is going to. I don't want to be too harsh to the owners of this business. I wish people well when they start a business. I want most businesses to succeed, but this one, I'm not sure. I'm talking about the Rabbit Cafe that we first brought up about a month ago or so. Rabbit Cafe opening or soon to open on Długa Street here in Krakow. Now, when we first heard mention of this Rabbit Cafe, we kind of assumed it was going to be similar to the existing animal-themed cafes we already have.
The Cat Cafe.
Cat Cafe, and isn't there a Bird Cafe maybe?
There's a few with like parrots or something. Yeah.
So, for example, at the Cat Cafe, the cats walk around and you sit and have your tea and coffee, and the cats rub up against your leg and shed their hair all over your table, in some disgusting manner.
Allergies and toxoplasmosis. Yeah.
And I thought the Rabbit Cafe would be the same. In other words, rabbits freely roaming the premises. Well, we learned this week that, in fact, that's not the case. The rabbits, for reasons that I'm not entirely clear on, have to be physically, separated from the human occupants.
Is this because there's a high risk of rabbit pox?
Could be rabbit bola.
Especially if you rub up against them or something.
So part of the cafe is dedicated to the rabbits. It's like an enclosed pen, like the rabbit zoo part of the place, and the rest of the place is just a typical cafe. The rabbits do not roam freely. The people are not allowed to go into the rabbit area, so I'm kind of wondering where the interaction comes from at all. Dr. Mike, we saw an interview published with the owner, something to the effect of... it's a rabbit cafe in the sense that people and rabbits are on the same general premises.
You can go into the rabbit pen, but not with any food or drink, and there's a limited amount of people that can go in there at any given time.
Zero, hopefully.
Basically. And what was funny is that the owner says that, they want to start, like, say, a company or a business that helps rabbits, helps people adopt rabbits,
yes.
A pet sanctuary, something along those lines. But they found that it would be very difficult, so they decided to go for this cafe instead. But you can't actually adopt any of the rabbits there because apparently once rabbits are in that group or family group, it's not great to separate them. I don't know. I eat rabbits.
Are rabbits herd animals? Are they?
What's the name of a herd of rabbits? I mean, this is
hatch.
I don't know. I don't know. It's a long time since I read Watership Down.
That's what I was thinking. Down, isn't it a down?
Don't think so.
Or is it down like the actual hole that they...
Down is a hill in England.
You can separate...
That makes a lot more sense now.
You can separate rabbits, for God's sake, can't you? Just like you can dogs and cats.
Well, they reproduce quick enough, don't they?
They do.
Rabbits.
Like you said, Dr. Mike, this place is supposed to be there for the benefit, somehow, in the general sense of rabbits.
Turns out that they're saying that they'll be sharing the profits with other organizations supporting rabbits and things like that. What I think is odd, though...
Carrots Futures.
There was... I don't know if it's still there, but there was a Thai Asian place on Podgórze next to Drukarnia.
Are you going to make a rabbit eating joke?
No, that kind. And they had an outside garden. I remember being there in that outside garden in the back, and there were rabbits just walking around. As part of the. I don't know if they cared about health and safety. It was just a thing. It was just like there were 2 or 3 rabbits that you're eating, and that's cute, and shitting everywhere. I really hope that's not
less hygienic. Cats or rabbits?
I think cats. Rabbits will stay on the ground level. You won't touch anything that a rabbit would have touched. Cats get all over the place.
Yeah, but cats do bury their poop. I've never seen a rabbit doing that.
And also, don't rabbits shit like every 2 minutes?
Yeah, they just leave it behind them. But
well, actually, they eat them sometimes.
That's right, they do. Even when we've disgusting animals.
All of a sudden, I want to go back to talking about the naked guy.
Good God, how is this appealing to anybody?
Well, presumably you can't take your dog into the rabbit cafe.
My God, people, what are you doing?
It's a greyhound, yeah.
All right, we're going to have to get some reconnaissance going. We're going to have to sneak into the rabbit cafe when it opens up.
A cafe or a restaurant that is bunny themed. It has to involve models just with that little, with their kind of bunnies.
Playboy, what is this, 1977?
Good times.
Yeah, I got to keep an eye on the rabbit thing. I just hope this does not become a trend. What's next?
Did you say that these proprietors are from California?
I didn't know that.
Canada.
Canada.
There's some reference to Canada. The owner, the proprietor...
Actually, that's nearly as bad these days,
is either from Canada or I think she said she was inspired by... So she might be from Canada. I don't know, but the idea comes from Canada. Thank you, Canada, for that. My God... but out of the two, I don't know. Which am I repulsed by more, cats or rabbits? That's a tough one.
I'm allergic to cats, so for me, it's more cats. Rabbits, I can tolerate them more. Plus, rabbits you can eat. You can eat cats too, but it's
apparently cats taste very similar to rabbit. The only way you can really tell, actually, is that they got slightly different ribs. I know this because I read it in one of those Second World War escape from some prisoner of war camp stories, and there was this apocryphal story about kind of that was a delicious cat stew you served tonight. He goes, no, it was rabbit, definitely rabbit. And he goes, no.
Rabbits are also used for their pelts. You don't cat pelts really.
And he explained, no, I know it was cat because the ribs are like this rather than like that. So it's one of those little things that I just filed away in my memory.
Yeah, I think that's actually an upbeat note there for the end.
Knowledge is power, Josh.
Yeah.
And you're very powerful today.
We're going to do the quiz tonight.
Yeah, I'm going to the quiz. I'm going to the tea time quiz at 8 o'clock.
Yeah.
That was a shameless plug.
Are you going with me? Are you going, Mike? Josh, are you going?
Yeah, why not?
Yeah. Okay. So, we're going to a quiz that's going to be over and done with before we even post this episode. Well done. All right, well, from naked guys in cars to people doing it on benches to bus drivers that have to pay 200 zlotys for getting in an accident.
Oopsie.
My bad. We didn't talk about Zakshuvek.
It's not going to be open next week anyway, so we can talk about it then.
Yeah, just very quickly. Bottom line, it's probably not going to be open this year. Too bad. It'll be open just as soon as the temperatures drop and school opens again. Then they'll open Zakshuvek.
So there's still plenty of opportunities to die a pointless death down there.
Exactly. Yeah, you can still
drown, crack open your skull, or freeze.
You can still walk past all the signs that say "No entry, construction zone." Do not enter.
And use it as a paddle.
And walk right past them and jump into the water that's half a meter deep with jagged rocks on the bottom. But anyway. Okay, so that's going to do it for this episode of the news. Thanks for listening, everybody. KrakCast.pl is the website, of course. Check out all of our back episodes. And we'll see you next time, naked on the news.
Really?